She told me she was going on a business trip to Boston. It was Friday morning when I kissed her goodbye at the airport, her eyes sparkling with excitement and my heart swelling with pride. I went back to my apartment in Chicago, assuming we'd be swapping texts and FaceTime calls all week. But 4 days later, an envelope arrived that shattered my world. A wedding invitation, addressed to me, with her name listed as the bride in elegant gold script. We'd been together for nearly 3 years. She was the first person I'd ever trusted completely. We met sophomore year at Northwestern University, bonding over our shared love of vinyl records and horror movies. Emily was my best friend first, then my girlfriend. We talked about marriage in those late-night conversations, fantasizing about weekends in a condo by Lake Michigan. She was my partner in every sense, my rock, my laughter, my future. I stared at the invitation as if it were some cruel joke. The date read, May 10th, barely 4 days away. The location, the Drake Oak Brook, a 5-star hotel neither of us had ever mentioned. There was no return address, no RSVP deadline, just my name, her name, and the gold outline of intertwined rings. My hands trembled so badly that I nearly cut my finger opening the envelope. Every rational thought collided with primal disbelief. The next hour turned into a blur. I messaged her on WhatsApp, "Hey, got this weird wedding invitation. Did you send this?" Her red receipt clicked instantly, but no response came. I turned to Google, searching for the Drake Oak Brook. Pictures of opulent ballrooms and marble columns filled my screen, none that we'd toured or mentioned. My blood ran cold when I realized how meticulously this was all planned. Whoever had orchestrated this wanted us to see it. I reached out to her best friend, Sarah. Sarah was someone I trusted without question. She wrote back almost immediately, "Jake, I have no idea what you're talking about." She hadn't gotten an invitation. And neither had Emily's family. Her mom was vacationing in Florida. Her little brother was playing in a weekend soccer tournament. No one in her inner circle was in the loop. But there it was, in my hands, proof that Emily was about to marry someone else. I spent the rest of the afternoon scrolling through social media, profiles of strangers who looked alarmingly familiar. I studied pictures of Emily's smile, the curve of her jawline, guessing at whether the groom was in any of those tagged photos. But nothing surfaced, no public posts, no comments, no clues. She'd locked down her Instagram, her Snapchat story disappeared as quickly as it appeared. The only trace was that invitation. By dinner, I'd made a decision. There was no way I could stay away. I needed to see her face behind that veil, to witness the moment her deception collided with reality. I booked a red-eye flight to Chicago O'Hare, then snagged a rental car reservation for the drive west to Oak Brook. I packed lightly, a pair of jeans, a hoodie to blend in, and my old Nikon DSLR in case I could catch something on film. I arrived at the Drake Oak Brook under cover of darkness, the hotel's twin towers glowing like sentinels against the starless sky. I parked 2 blocks away, leaning on the car for a second to calm the chaos in my chest. At the valet stand, I pretended to be a guest arriving early, asking about ballrooms and catering schedules. My accent carried the slight Chicago twang I'd never bothered to lose. The staff directed me to entrance C, where a row of Mercedes and Porsches waited to unload. Inside, the lobby hummed with soft jazz and the murmur of well-dressed guests. Crystal chandeliers reflected off polished marble floors. I slipped into the crowd, blending in as best as I could. My heart pounded when I saw the floral archway leading to the ceremony hall. I paused, adjusting my hoodie as dozens of chairs faced a dais draped in white orchids. And then I saw her. Emily, radiant in a whisper-thin gown, her back to me as she arranged her veil. My chest twisted with a mix of dread and anticipation, every second stretching like a lifetime. My breath caught in my throat as I watched Emily slip her hand into the groom's. Some stranger who stood a few feet away, clad in a charcoal suit that cost more than my car payment. His back was to me too, so I only saw the sheen of his hair, jet black and slicked back, and the way his shoulders squared as he reached out, as if rehearsing a lifetime of vows. My heart hammered like a war drum inside my ribs. Every fiber of my being screamed to rush forward, grab her arm, tell her to look at me. Anything to stop this madness, but my legs were rooted to the plush carpet. A hush fell over the room as the officiant approached the dais, holding a small black binder. Guests shifted in their seats, leaning forward. Champagne flutes clinked softly. Somewhere above, a grand chandelier trembled, casting prisms of light across the polished floor. I wiped cold sweat from my palms, the leather of my camera strap cutting into my skin. I pressed my back against a marble column, hiding my face and my presence behind its ornate fluting. From here I could see every detail, the delicate lace tracing the neckline of her gown, the tiny pearl earrings that had always been her favorite, the way her hair coiled into an imperfect bun, just like mine whenever I stole glances at her in the mornings. "Dearly beloved," the officiant began, his voice low and reverent, "we are gathered here today to join Emily and Michael in holy matrimony." Michael. His name pierced me like a dagger. Michael, a man I didn't know, whose life was now inexplicably entangled with mine, whose hands would hold hers every night, whose laughter would ring alongside hers at anniversaries, whose face would frame the future we once planned together. My throat went dry. I could taste the metallic tang of betrayal on my tongue. Years of memories, road trips to Milwaukee, late-night pizza orders, dancing in my living room to 80s ballads, flickered through my mind like a slideshow of ghostly echoes. I swallowed hard, resisting the urge to choke back tears. Behind me, the soft hum of guests snapping photos mingled with the officiant's words, "If anyone can show just cause why these two should not be joined, speak now, or forever hold your peace." A pregnant pause filled the air. My heart jolted. I was the one who should speak, the one who should stand, tear down this facade, and demand to know how this could be possible. I stepped out from behind the column, my hoodie silhouette drawn stark against the ivory blooms. "I do," I blurted before I could stop myself. Every pair of eyes snapped toward me. Bridesmaids gaped, the officiant blinked, and Emily froze, her veil trembling as if caught in an unseen breeze. Michael pivoted, confusion etched across his handsome features. The room crackled with tension like lightning before a storm. I strode forward, every step a battle between rage and heartbreak. Emily's eyes widened, the perfect arches of her brows shooting upward, her lips parted silently. I saw recognition dawn across her face, first shock, then guilt, then the flicker of panic. I stopped just a few feet from the dais, my camera forgotten at my side. My voice cracked when I spoke, as if I were wading through water. "What the hell, Emily?" I managed. "You told me you were in Boston on business. You didn't even tell me your brother was in this town, let alone that you were planning a wedding. Who is this guy, Michael? Why is he standing up here about to marry you?" My words ricocheted off the walls, the murmurs rose into a low roar. Some guests gasped, others covered their mouths, a few pulled out phones to record the spectacle. Emily's cheeks flushed scarlet. She inhaled sharply, glanced at Michael, then back at me. Her lips quivered. She looked like a ghost trapped in a too shiny gown, her poised composure unraveling in real time. Michael stepped forward, confusion etched in every line of his face. "Jake," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Do I know you?" I shook my head. "You shouldn't, you just met her." Then I turned back to her. "Why, Em? Was I not good enough?" My voice broke and I tasted tears. There was a pause so vast it could have swallowed us whole. Emily pressed her fingers to her lips, her eyes glossy. She glanced at the officiant, who stepped back in confusion, unsure whether to continue or flee. Finally she shook her head, her voice a trembling whisper. "Jake, this isn't what it looks like." "But it is," I said. "You're about to marry him. You made an invitation with my name on it. You said you loved me." I swallowed, anguish breaking me. "I loved you." Michael looked to Emily, then to me. "Emily?" he prompted. She inhaled, straightening her back as if summoning every ounce of courage. "I'm so sorry," she began, voice trailing off. Her gaze locked on mine, tears spilling freely now. "Now, I never meant to hurt you. I got scared. When I got that job offer in Boston, I panicked. I thought it would change everything between us, and I didn't know how to tell you." Michael and I drifted closer because he was there when I was alone in that hotel room. It wasn't supposed to go this far. Her words hung in the charged silence. I felt the ground shift beneath me, the world tilting on its axis as the facade of my relationship crumbled into shards around us. The flowers, the music, the white gown, it all felt like a fever dream. I swallowed hard, my voice a raspy whisper. "You lied to me every day." Emily's shoulders shook. Michael's hand hovered near hers, uncertain. The officiant cleared his throat. eyes darting between us. Guests leaned forward, desperate for the next twist in our shared tragedy. And in that moment, suspended between the sacred vows and my broken heart, I realized one thing with crystal clarity. Life doesn't come with a rehearsed script. It comes unannounced, in invitations that don't belong, in moments when the person you trust most turns out to be a stranger. I took a step back, the noise of the hall receding into a dull roar. Emily's tears glistened like shattered pearls. Michael looked torn, the weight of his new reality crashing down. I felt a strange calm wash over me, a quiet resolve to leave behind the ruins of this day, to salvage whatever dignity I had left. "Let's finish this," I said softly, nodding toward the officiant. Or maybe not. My voice hardening, I gripped my camera and turned away, weaving through the guests who stared in stunned silence. As I exited under the arch of orchids, the chandelier's prisms danced across my path, mocking me with their fragmented beauty. Behind me I heard Emily's apology echoing, the rustle of her gown, the clink of Michael's cufflinks. But I didn't look back. I kept walking, my heart heavy but beating, every step carrying me farther from the life I thought I knew, and closer to the unknown that waited outside those marble doors. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I drove back to Chicago in the quiet hours, headlights cutting through the fog as pale as the shame I felt. My mind replayed every detail, the gold script of the invitation, the look on Emily's face when I called her out, Michael's stunned confusion. By the time I pulled into my driveway, dawn was breaking, brushing the skyline with pale pink light that felt incongruent with the darkness inside me. I collapsed onto my couch, hoodie still on, and stared at the ceiling until the first rays of sun burned through the blinds. My phone buzzed nonstop, texts from friends checking if I was okay, a voicemail from my boss saying I missed an important meeting, and a flurry of notifications from delivery apps about the late-night pizza I'd apparently ordered. I didn't remember placing an order, which only added to the surreal haze. It was like I'd slept in someone else's body, lived someone else's nightmare. I tried reaching Emily. I dialed her number, hit send, and listened to the endless ring that never connected. No voicemail box, no end-of-service message, just call after call that went unanswered. I texted Sarah again, "Can you put me in touch with her? Is she safe?" But silence. It wasn't until noon that I got a reply. "Jake, I'm sorry. I don't know where she is. She drove off in Michael's car after you left. I haven't heard from her." Every muscle in my body cramped. I felt sick to my stomach, like the betrayal was still twisting inside me, refusing to let go. I wrestled with anger and an odd, helpless longing to protect her, even after everything. She had broken my trust, but I still loved her. I recognized that love as something foolish and beautiful that I'd have to carry forward, like a scar that wouldn't fade. By mid-afternoon, I forced myself out of the apartment. I needed air, movement, anything to break the cycle of my own thoughts. I walked to the lakefront path, the breeze off Lake Michigan cold against my face. Joggers passed me, earbuds in, oblivious to my internal wreckage. I watched the water lap against the shore and tried to imagine all this as some terrible dream I could wake up from. On the way back, I stopped at our favorite record store on Halsted Street. It was owned by an old guy named Vic with a handlebar mustache and a soft spot for couples who came in together. He saw me enter and immediately called out, "Jake, you look like hell, kid." I told him I was fine, lied through my teeth, but he didn't buy it. He pulled out a copy of the Smiths' "The Queen is Dead" and said, "Here, on the house, you'll know why." The melancholy chords floated through the speakers as I walked out, and for a moment, I felt less alone. That night, I sat on my fire escape, overlooking the quiet alley where the city lights flickered. I scrolled through my phone, looking for any clue, an old flight confirmation for Emily's business trip, a pattern in her emails, anything to explain how she could vanish so completely. But her digital trail was erased, her Instagram locked, her email forwarding set to an unknown address, her phone unreachable. It was as if she'd severed every tie, leaving only the memory of her voice in my head. Days passed, each one indistinguishable from the last. I tried going back to work, but every spreadsheet, every meeting felt hollow. I started talking to a therapist, someone I'd never considered before. I needed to understand why I'd stayed so blind, Why I'd ignored those little red flags when she started canceling plans or turning off red receipts. She listened without judgment as I unraveled the story of us, trying to find the moment I could have stepped in and changed its course. Then, almost 2 weeks after the wedding that never happened, I got a text from an unknown number. Meet me at Logan Square Fountain. Noon. No name, no explanation, just coordinates. My gut twisted. Hope and dread warred inside me. I showed up early, the fountain's stone lions silent in the midday sun. I circled the plaza twice before I saw her, Emily, across the grass, wearing a denim jacket over a sundress, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked smaller than I remembered, the confidence drained from her posture. I approached slowly, her eyes flicked up, meeting mine with a mixture of relief and fear. She glanced at the benches, then held out her hand. Can we sit? She asked quietly. I nodded, and we took one of the curved concrete benches. We sat in a silence so thick it felt suffocating. Finally, she drew a shaky breath. I wanted to explain, she said. Her hands twisted in her lap. Michael was someone I met that week. He was attentive, supportive when I was alone. I didn't plan to mail an invitation to you. I just wanted to see if I could feel alive again. She looked at me, tears brimming. But when I saw your face at that ceremony, I realized I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. Anger flared. How dare she cast me aside, play with my heart like that? But then I remembered who I was without her. A man who learned to find strength in vulnerability, to embrace the uncertainty of life. I exhaled slowly. You hurt me, I said simply. Not just with lies, but by choosing someone else. She reached out, hesitated, then withdrew her hand. I know, I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just needed you to know why. Her voice cracked. I lost myself, Jake, and I lost you. I looked at her, the woman who had been my whole world and now felt like a stranger. The fountain gurgled behind us as the city pulsed around our frozen moment. I realized that whatever came next, closure, forgiveness, or complete detachment, it wouldn't be easy. But it would be honest. And for the first time in weeks, that honesty felt like a beginning rather than an end. The late afternoon sun streamed through the leafy canopy above Logan Square Fountain, casting dancing shadows across Emily's face. I watched her struggle to find the right words, the breeze tussling her hair, and felt a strange twinge of empathy. We sat side by side on that curved concrete bench, its cold surface a stark contrast to the heat of my chest. The world around us carried on. Kids played tag on the grass, skateboarders glided by, but in our bubble, time seemed to pause. I'm meeting with my therapist again tomorrow, she said, voice barely above a whisper. She's helping me understand why I ran from us, why I let myself be drawn in by someone else. Her shoulders trembled. I'm not asking you to come back. I just want you to know that I'm trying to make sense of all this. I folded my arms, the tension coiling in my muscles. I appreciate that, I said after a moment, my tone softer than I expected. But you should do this for you, not me. I glanced at her profile. And if healing means we never talk again, that's on you. A tear slipped down her cheek, and she brushed it away. I know. She looked out toward the fountain, the water arcing in perfect symmetry. I felt like I'm drowning since that day. I thought running away would save me. Instead, it almost destroyed me. I stared at her, the girl who'd stood in a white gown claiming a future with someone else. The betrayal still stung, a raw wound that refused to scab over. But sitting here, listening to the tremor in her voice, I realized that forgiveness and reconciliation were two different roads, and I might choose neither. I can't pretend none of it happened, I said. But I also can't keep replaying that day in my head. My fingers traced the edge of the bench. I've been talking to my therapist too. She says closure doesn't happen in a day. I managed a small, bitter laugh. I guess we both have work to do. A flicker of a real smile crossed Emily's face, the first genuine expression I'd seen since that morning in Oak Brook. I'm glad you're getting help, she said. I used to think therapy was for people who couldn't handle life. Now I know it's for people brave enough to face their own mess. Her honesty was disarming. I shifted, the breeze lifting stray hairs from my forehead. I still don't understand how you could plan a wedding in secret. I admitted. You sent that invitation to me, my name on a pile of gold-lettered envelopes. That was calculated. It wasn't an accident. Emily swallowed, nodding. It was selfish. It was cruel. I thought if I put the invitation in your hands you'd confront me sooner, force me to make a decision. But I never expected you to show up. I was sure you'd dismiss it, call me crazy and walk away." She closed her eyes, as though the memory pained her. "When you appeared at the altar, I felt my heart stop. Everything I'd believed, every lie I'd told, crashed down like a house of cards." We lapsed into silence again, the fountain's patter a gentle reminder that life continues whether you're ready or not. My phone buzzed in my pocket, another text from Sarah, more anxious than the last. I ignored it. This moment was ours, limited and fragile. After a minute, Emily stood. "I should go," she said. "I have an appointment in an hour." She hesitated, then looked back at me. "Thank you for meeting me. Even if we never speak again, I'm grateful you came." I stood too, the bench creaking beneath me. "Take care of yourself," I said. My voice cracked. "I mean it." She nodded, and for a second, I thought she might step forward and hug me. But she merely turned away, her silhouette growing smaller against the sunlit grass. I watched until she disappeared into the crowd, and then I exhaled the breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. I headed back toward the fountain, circling it slowly. The stone lion's silent stares, a stark contrast to the emotional storm inside me. What I felt wasn't closure, that would take months, maybe years, but an inkling of resolve. I wouldn't let this define me, wouldn't let her betrayal dictate the rest of my life. I was more than a fractured relationship, more than the guy whose heart was splintered on a hotel altar. I pulled my phone out and texted David, my coworker and friend, asking if he wanted to catch a game at Wrigley this weekend. Something simple, something normal, a chat over cold beers, the roar of the crowd washing away the echoes of my personal tragedy. As I typed, my fingers hesitated over the send button. This small gesture felt monumental, an assertion that I still belonged in the world beyond heartbreak. I pressed send. Instantly, my phone buzzed with David's enthusiastic reply. A smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. Maybe this was the first real step forward, rejoining life one ordinary moment at a time. I walked away from the fountain, each footstep lighter than the one before. The shadows lengthened, the city's pulse shifting from afternoon bustle to evening hum. And though the pain was still there, fierce and unforgiving, I carried it differently now. No longer a leaden weight, but a reminder of my own resilience. As I climbed into my car, I paused for a moment, looking out at the skyline etched against the darkening sky. The city lights flickered on, one by one, each a small promise that no matter the darkness, there is always light somewhere. I turned the key in the ignition, the engine's purr a comforting lullaby against the turmoil of the past weeks, and I drove toward home, toward whatever came next, ready to write the next chapter, my chapter, on my own terms. The late spring breeze rattled the mesh of Wrigley Field's outfield fence as I settled into the sun-baked bleachers beside David. The crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, it sounded like freedom. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't replaying betrayal. I was simply watching a game. Across the aisle, a vendor offered me a cold beer. I accepted it without a second thought. It was almost midday, but the summer warmth made it feel like August. I raised that plastic cup in a silent toast, something like a, "Here's to moving on." David nudged me. "You look better than last week's coffee-stained hoodie," he said, flashing a grin. "Therapy working already?" I laughed. A genuine burst, warm and surprising. "Yeah," I admitted. "Turns out talking to someone who doesn't judge you for ugly crying is pretty liberating." He slapped my shoulder, and for a moment I allowed myself to sink into the camaraderie of old friends. The game played out like a balm. When the Cubs scored, we high-fived. When they struck out, we groaned. Between innings, I found myself gazing at the skyline, the sun glittering on the high-rises, feeling that odd mixture of nostalgia for what I'd lost and anticipation for what might come next. It occurred to me that grief isn't one thing. It's a scattering of moments where everything feels both too heavy and impossibly light at once. After the ninth inning stretch, I headed home alone, the cheers still echoing in my ears. Back at my apartment, I peeled off my shoes, slid into sweatpants, and sank onto the couch. I looked around at the small changes I'd made. The new succulent on the coffee table, that mark on the wall where I'd finally hung the photograph of us in Redwoods, our last happy memory together. I wondered if I should take down that photo, but something told me to leave it. Some reminders are meant to stay, at least until you know exactly what you want to remember. Over the next few weeks, life found a steady rhythm. I kept my therapy appointments religiously. On Wednesdays at 2 p.m., I'd park in that cracked lot behind the clinic, petitioning myself to step inside and talk about all the ways I'd failed and to celebrate every little victory. I journaled in the late evenings, scratchy pen on lined paper, writing letters to Emily I'd never send, letters to myself that I might one day read with curiosity instead of pain. I even joined a Thursday morning running group along the lake, surprising myself by actually looking forward to lacing up my sneakers. Work was still a mix of routine tasks and occasional pangs of dread when I opened my email and saw her name in the CC line. Someone from marketing forwarding a press release from email.yjones. My heart would stutter for a second before remembering that address no longer belonged to her. I changed the filter settings so it went straight to trash. It was a small gesture of reclaiming control. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, I ran into Morgan from accounting at the coffee shop on Orleans Street. We'd only ever emailed about expense reports, but she recognized me. "Hey Jake, right?" And offered a sympathetic smile when I admitted I was there for an iced Americano and nothing else. She slipped into the seat across from me and asked about my post-wedding saga, having heard some of the gossip from mutual colleagues. I found myself telling her, between sips, about betrayal and therapy, about driving through the night and the hollow ache of that faux wedding. To my surprise, she listened without judgment, her eyes soft and understanding. "I'm sorry you went through that," she said when I paused. "But I'm glad you're okay." Her sincerity felt like sunshine after a storm. We laughed at the absurdity of life's curveballs, and when I left, I realized I'd given her my number and she'd given me hers. We texted that evening about favorite local bands and where to find the best tacos. It was tentative, exploratory, but it was real. 2 months after the invitation arrived, a plain white envelope appeared in my mailbox again. My hands hesitated before opening it. Inside was a single sheet of paper in Emily's familiar cursive. "Jake, I'm sorry. I've been in Boston. I'm safe. I understand if you never want to speak to me again. But I needed you to know that I was lost, not cruel. If you'd like closure, meet me at the beach at sunrise this Saturday. E." I stared at those words for what felt like hours. My chest tightened and memories flickered. Her perfume in the airport lounge, the cold marble of the Drake's lobby, the tremor in her voice when I confronted her. I pressed the letter against my heart. A sudden ache that was both old and new. I thought of Morgan and her warm laughter, of the group run where I'd felt legitimately strong for the first time in months, and of my therapist's voice saying, "Closure doesn't come from confrontation. It comes from understanding what you need to heal." I folded Emily's letter slowly and tucked it into my jacket pocket. The sunrise beach meeting sounded tempting, an ultimatum of either reopening old wounds or sealing the coffin on my past. I closed my eyes, feeling the pulse of life in my veins. The invitation to that impromptu sunrise meeting would stay there for now, a choice I reserved the right to make later. Because right now, what mattered was that I'd survived. I'd rediscovered laughter in the stands of Wrigley, trust in the shared vulnerabilities of therapy, and possibility in conversations with someone new. There was a long road ahead, maybe winding through introspection, maybe dotted with new relationships, but for once, the map was mine to draw. And I was ready to take the next turn, wherever it might lead.